Okay, so yeah, so anybody has any questions? Any questions on the project? Okay, so have you guys started working? If you started working, I'm sure you'll have questions. If you've not started, then obviously there's no questions. Okay, so I'll assume that nobody has started working because there are no questions. Okay, we only have 7 people still in the class.
Sir,
Yes.
we'll get the location of the, I mean, sir, we'll get the location of these online, no, what do we say?
What are you asking? We'll get the location of the rainfall gauges.
Yes, sir, yes, sir.
Yeah, so in the file that I sent you, it has the name of the village or the district name, the name of the location where the rainfall gauge is located and so on, right?
Okay, okay.
Right. So from that, you go to Google Maps, enter the name of that village in the district. It will take you there, and then you'll get the latitude longitude from Google Maps. If you just click on any point inside that village in Google Maps, that will give you the latitude longitude. You can use that. Yeah. So I mean, unless you try to work on the project, you won't have questions like this, right? I deliberately don't give all the information on the very first day, because if I give all the information, then you just then it's just a question of go step 1, step 2, step 3. I deliberately leave it open ended so that you figure out some things on your own, right? Okay.
Sir, also
Yeah.
question,
Yeah.
we were given the data of only 1 year, so we'll be taking the mean of the data for the rainfall, right?
Okay, so remember the what the objective of the project is, or the objective of this assignment is. The objective is to estimate the average annual precipitation of that area. So when I say annual, I mean from January 1st to December 31st, how much total rainfall was received. Okay, so you will obtain that total for all the different stations within your district, and then obtain the average of all of those, right? So if location 1 receives 500 millimeters, location 2 receives 600 millimeters, location 3 receives something else, right? You take all of those, create your Thousand polygons, and then obtain the area weighted average of the total rainfall received in the year, right? So you're
Sir,
looking at
but
the average annual rainfall. Yes.
sir, but if I'm given the data of more than 1 year, then should we take only the recent years rainfall data, or can we mean it over some other years rainfall data?
Yeah. So everything depends on what the objective is, right? If I tell you what is the average annual precipitation in this location and I give you 30 years of data, okay, suppose the question is what is the average annual precipitation at this in this district, and to find that out, if I give you 30 years of data, you'll take 1 year, you'll find out the average for 1 year, because within that area you have multiple locations. None of those locations represents the entire district. They are all within the district, and they all represent that location. They don't represent the entire district. So that's the problem, right? I give you 30 years of data. None of the years represents the average year. Like we don't know beforehand, right? Every year you receive a different amount of rainfall. We don't know what the average is, right? So there are two problems in this data set. One is that the data set is at particular points in space which don't represent the entire area, right? And it is at particular points in time which doesn't necessarily represent the average over time. Okay, so then to obtain the spatial average, which is the average of all the locations there, you use your Thousand polygon approach. And so you will be able to get, for example, for the year 1990, you'll be able to get one number representing the average of 1990. the spatial average of 1990. Okay, using the size and polygon approach. Same approach, next year, you get one more number. So you get the average of 1991, 1992, 93, and so on. For the 30 years, let's say you get the average for each of those years. Then the average of all of those years will give you the long-term average of this location. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Right. But in this particular case, I've made life a little bit easier for all of you. I've just given you 1 year's information. That's all. You just have 1 year's worth of data, and you're asked to find out what the average precipitation, average annual precipitation is for this district, for a given district, assuming that what you know the rainfall at all these different locations within that district. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So any other questions? Let's quickly, we'll spend maybe a couple more minutes on the project. See, you have to start doing it. If you don't start doing it, you won't have questions. If you don't have questions, next Monday will still come. Right? And it is better if you get your questions answered, you know, when everybody else is present, because you may think of one aspect, somebody else may think of another aspect, which may also be helpful for you. If you individually email me, which is fine, I'll reply to them. I don't have a problem. But if each individual person keeps replying, keeps sending an email to me, it's not the best possible outcome for you, because you may think of 2 questions, somebody else may think of 2 other questions. If you ask them in class, everybody's questions get answered. Right? So you've got to understand that. I mean, this is not like our traditional classroom thing, right? Where you all went back to the same hostel, so you could ask each other. Right now, I mean, you could still ask each other, but it's easier if you do it, you know, when I'm around. So please start working on the project, because only if you start working, you will have questions. If you don't have questions, my guess is that you haven't started working, which is not a good thing. Okay. I mean, of course, if you actually sincerely sit and do it, it'll take maybe, I don't know, 2 hours, 3 hours, maybe 5 hours. So you can finish it off in a day. But that doesn't mean you take it to the last minute, because then the likelihood of making a mistake increases. All right. So we'll keep going from there. So yeah. So the last class we was talking about evaporation and transpiration, right? So transpiration was basically the water that leaves the plant during photosynthesis. That component is called transpiration. Okay. And like we previously discussed, the factors that affect transpiration are similar to those that affect evaporation. So therefore, you know, we'll not go back over it again. All right. But the significant difference between transpiration and evaporation is that transpiration only happens during daylight hours, because photosynthesis happens in the presence of sunlight. So therefore, this process only takes place during daylight hours. Now, although we call it transpiration as an individual process, typically what is done is that hydrologists refer to this process along with evaporation together and call it one composite process called evapotranspiration. And so what evapotranspiration is that as water leaves through the leaves or water exits through the leaves of a plant, it also simultaneously is getting evaporated from the soil on which the plant is standing, right? So if I have a pot of soil in which there's a plant, that pot of soil will be moist, will have some moisture in it. It may even have standing water in it, right? Sometimes you pour a lot of water and it's just there's like 1 centimeter of water standing at the base of the plant, right? So along with this transpiration that is happening through the leaves, you may also have evaporation happening from either from the soil itself or from the water on which that plant is standing. So these two processes together, we sometimes refer to it as evapotranspiration. Okay, so this is one of the most significant processes in hydrology, which even today which continues to attract a lot of research to try to understand evapotranspiration, right? Because it's such a complex process, very, very difficult to estimate. Okay, so we will talk a little bit about the different methods of estimation, but before that we will talk about 2 other concepts. Okay, 2 ideas. One of that is called potential evapotranspiration and the other is actual evapotranspiration, right? We spoke about this last time. So potential evapotranspiration is that when the soil moisture available is able to successfully satisfy the demands of the vegetation, right? So I had different kinds of plants, each of which requires moisture to varying extents, right? So if I have two different plants, one plant will require a lot of water, the other plant will require less water, and so on, right? So if I have a particular plant which requires some amount of moisture in the soil, if the amount of moisture that is available in the soil is able to completely meet the demand of the soil of the plant, I'm sorry, right? If the available moisture is able to completely meet the demands of the vegetation that is being grown there, then that transpiration is called potential evapotranspiration. Okay, so we typically call it PET. Okay, the potential, which means the maximum evapotranspiration that can happen from a given type of plant. Okay, so that's called potential ET. But suppose the soil moisture that's available in the soil is limited, right? If the moisture content is not at the maximum, but it is at some limited value, then what happens is that the plant does not grow to its full capacity. It grows at a slightly lower capacity, right? So that evapotranspiration that happens in that circumstance is called actual evapotranspirations, right? So that's called AET. Okay, so these two ideas, potential evapotranspiration and actual evapotranspiration, are very important, right? Because depending on whether PET is happening or AET is happening, it gives you a clue about the available moisture in the soil, right? Which again determines whether you have to supply additional irrigation or not, right? So for example, if you're growing, let us say, a paddy or some other crop like that, which requires a lot of water, right? If the evapotranspiration is happening at lower than PET, that means the plant is not growing to its full capacity, which means some additional water has got to be supplied, right? So typically, if you look at if you read the news, you will see information. You may see a piece of news that looks like this. It says there has been no rainfall in the last 2 months. Okay, and the farmers have been advised to irrigate their crops to a certain extent, right? So what is done is the farmers are given what is called an advisory. An advisory means that if you are growing this kind of a crop, then you should supply it this much amount of water in case the rain is not happening. Or they'll say in the next 10 days there is no forecast of rain, right? So if you want to ensure that your crop is growing at a optimum level, then you have to supply water, right? It could be either from you may have like a small pond in the farm which stores some rainwater, which you can use to irrigate your cultivated area, or you can use your bore well to extract some groundwater and then irrigate your crop, or there may be a canal running nearby from which you can take water, right? So all of these different possibilities are there. But the point is, you can use information to decide what to do, right? You can in some cases the government also installs the soil moisture sensors at different parts of the district, right? At different locations all over the country, there are soil moisture sensors available, right? From that soil moisture sensor, you can also find out, okay, looks like there is not enough moisture in the soil. We need to apply more water so that the plant can grow at optimum grow to its optimum potential, right? So this potential and actual evapotranspiration is very important, right? Especially when you're looking at trying to advise farmers on how to irrigate their crops. What kind of depending on the crop, of course, right? So some crops require more water, some crops require less water. So you can give very specific information to different farmers depending on the crop being grown and depending on the conditions and the forecast. Okay, so now we'll introduce two concepts here relating to particular types of soil. One is called the field capacity, right? This field capacity is basically a property of the soil. Okay, different soil types have different field capacities. What is field capacity? Field capacity is basically the maximum capacity of that soil to retain moisture in it against the force of gravity, right? So it's basically a very straightforward idea. So if I have a particular kind of soil, if I pour some water in it, if I don't pour a lot of water, right, the moisture that goes into that soil, the soil is made up of basically some fine grained materials and so on, right? That fine grained material has some affinity for water, right? Some kind of whatever chemical interaction or whatever attraction is happening between the particles of the soil and the water molecules, right? So if the soil is able to hold that moisture within its voids, right, against gravity, right, the water would preferably like to flow down with gravity. But if the soil has enough attraction for the water molecules to hold it against gravity, right, so the maximum capacity to which the soil can do that is called the field capacity. Okay, so field capacity is the maximum moisture content of the soil such that no drainage is happening, no movement of moisture with gravity is happening. Okay, so that is what is called field capacity. Okay, the next terminology, and of course, as you can imagine, this field capacity will vary from soil to soil. Can anybody tell me for which kind of soil the field capacity will be higher and for which kind of soil the field capacity will be lower? Any idea?
For clay, it will be higher.
Clay soil, it will be
Black
higher.
soil.
Yeah, Ayub?
And sandy, it will be lower.
Black soil will have highest.
What is that?
Black soil.
Yeah, black soil. Black soil is 2 words, but you've not given any adjective, higher, lower, something like that.
Highest, sir.
What is that?
High.
Black soil will be high. Okay. All right. Okay. So you can all understand that, or you can all immediately visualize for which kind of soil field capacity will be higher and so on, right? As you've all pointed out, wherever you have very, very fine grained soils, naturally the forces of attraction between the clay particles and the water molecules will be much more higher because the surface area is more, so it is able to retain the water much better. So field capacity is obviously higher for clay kind of soil compared to sand kind of soil. Now the other important parameter that we will be looking at is what is called permanent wilting point. Permanent wilting point, sometimes it's also called just wilting point. Okay, wilting point is basically that moisture content of the soil below which the soil is not able to sustain the plants. Okay, so basically now if you imagine, if I take a perfectly dry sample of soil, okay, can any plant grow in a perfectly dry soil sample? Zero moisture content, right? Can any plant grow in that? It's obvious, no need to answer. Obviously no plant can grow in a soil which has zero moisture. Okay, now let us say I keep adding water until I reach field capacity. Okay, so now the plant is able to extract some water from the soil and it is able to grow. Okay, so that's fine. Now let us say it keeps extracting water and now you reach a certain moisture content where the roots are no longer able to extract it from the soil. You understand what is happening? When the root is taking the soil from when the root is taking the moisture from the soil, what is happening is that there is some kind of a how do we say, there is some kind of a battle happening between the root and the soil particles, right? If the soil particles are able to hold the water tight, right, then the root is not able to extract the water or suck the water from within the voids of the soil sample, right? Which means if there is a lot of water available in the soil sample, the root is able to easily extract it. But if you keep reducing the moisture content in the soil, at some point the soil is able to still hold on to the water much more tightly because it has some force of attraction, right? Which the roots are not able to overcome. If the roots are not able to overcome that, although there is some moisture in the soil, the roots are not able to extract it from the soil. So therefore, that point below which the roots are no longer, although the soil contains some moisture, it is practically speaking, it is not able to sustain the the plant. So that point is called what is called permanent wilting point or wilting point. Okay, is that okay? Is that clear? Okay, so now let us say, so out of these 2 points arises one more terminology which is called available water. Okay, available water is simply field capacity minus wilting point. Does everybody agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Right, available water. When I say available, I mean available for the plants. Available water is simply field capacity minus wilting point. Anything below wilting point is not available to the plant. So therefore, that's not available water. So available water is simply field capacity minus wilting point. Okay. All right. Now I'll ask. Okay, I've revealed the answer here, but I'll just think about this. If soil moisture is equal to field capacity, AET and PET are exactly the same. Do you agree with that?
Yes, sir.
Everybody agrees? If the soil moisture is at the maximum, field capacity is the maximum capacity, right? At that maximum condition, actual evapotranspiration and potential evapotranspiration will be one and the same, because soil moisture is at its maximum possible. I mean, when I say maximum, I mean against gravity. If you flood the soil, then it's again anyway, it doesn't matter. Actually, maybe I should say if soil moisture greater than or equal to field capacity. Okay, if soil moisture is greater than or equal to field capacity, AET equal to PET. That would probably be a little bit more accurate. Okay, all right. So now I'll ask a different question. If soil moisture equal to wilting point, what will AET be?
0.
What is that? Somebody spoke. If soil moisture equal to wilting point or less than or equal to wilting point, AET equal to
0.
0. Does everybody agree? Right?
Yes,
So if soil moisture is less than wilting point, then the actual evapotranspiration, because it has gone below wilting point, the plant is no longer able to take water from the soil. If the plant is no longer able to take water from the soil, there's no possibility of any evapotranspiration happening. So then AET becomes equal to 0, at which at this point you will say that the plant has died, right? So whenever there's any reference to drought or something like that, you know, in the papers they'll show a photo of a farm in which the plants are all and the crops are all dying. Okay, or they're all just dried out and they're just, you know, the plants are all basically dead. So wilting is basically it's a negative word. Wilting means basically dying. Okay, the point at which the plants start to die is the wilting point, right? So if the soil moisture goes below wilting point, then AET equal to 0. In other words, the plant is dead or dying. Okay. Okay. So now I'm going to show you a simple graph, which has on the x-axis I have the available moisture. Okay, and on the y-axis I have the ratio of AET to PET. Right? If available moisture is at 100%, right, then AET by PET is at 100%, right? So that's where this curve starts. Okay, the curve starts at 100 when available moisture is 100%. AET by PET, that ratio is 100%, which means it's 1. AET by PET percentage is 100%. And when available moisture is 0, AET by PET also becomes 0. But for different kinds of soil, you may have different kinds of curves of how AET by PET changes as a function of moisture available in the soil. Okay, this is just a simple illustration curve. The shape of this curve, don't worry about it. Okay, it's some shape. Okay, it will be different for different kinds of soils, and it may also be different for different kinds of plants. But this is just to illustrate that, you know, when the moisture content available in the soil changes, the ratio of AET to PET also changes appropriately, and at some point it becomes 0 when the available moisture becomes 0. Okay, remember, this is available moisture, this is not moisture. There's a difference. Moisture content may still be there, but it may be below wilting point. So remember, I said available water is field capacity minus wilting point. Okay. All right. Okay. So now we'll speak briefly about how to estimate or to measure evapotranspiration. Okay. So again, here there are multiple methods of doing this. The more popular methods are using empirical equations, but I'll also talk a little bit about field methods. Okay. So this method is what is called a lysimeter. Okay. A lysimeter is essentially what you do is you take you create a tank in the middle of a farm. Okay. A watertight tank in the middle of a farm. You fill it up with the same soil as the surrounding soil. Okay. But the tank is watertight. Okay. You fill it up with the same soil as a surrounding soil, and you grow the same plant as whatever surrounding plants that are being grown. Okay. So can you imagine this? So I'll just draw quickly. Are you able to see this? Okay. So just imagine I have a field. For the simplicity, I'm just making it a box. Okay. If I have a farm, and then within that I create a small box. This box is watertight. Okay. No water can enter from the sides or from the bottom. Okay. In this entire field, whatever soil is present, the same soil, I place it inside this watertight tank. Okay. Whatever plants are being grown in this farm, the same plants I will grow it inside this watertight tank also. Okay. Then, okay, now can anybody tell me how to estimate ET? Any ideas? There's multiple ways of doing it. Can anybody tell me what to do? Any ideas?
Measure the moisture content of the soil, difference in moisture content of the soil over a period of time.
Okay. But remember, we are measuring ET. If the moisture content reduces, what happens to ET?
It has increased.
No, what is that? No, see, let us say at time instant t equal to 0, there is some moisture content in the soil, and at that time ET is some number. Okay. After 1 hour, the moisture content is reduced. Will the ET reduce? If the available moisture in the soil has reduced, won't the ET also reduce? We just saw that in the previous. You see this? If initially the percentage available moisture is, let us say, 100%. Okay, so then AET happens at this rate. After 1 hour or 2 hours, if the moisture content has become 60%, for instance, then the AET by PET will become whatever 80% also. Correct?
Yes, sir.
And we don't know PET. If you know PET beforehand, then with knowing this ratio, you can find out what AET is. But the point is, we don't know PET beforehand, right? So now think about this. You're on the right track. Okay, let's call somebody else. 1 second. Pavan. No, what is this? Satyadev Pavan, right? I forgotten his name. Ah.
Yes.
You are Pavan, right?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Yeah. So, do you have any idea? Aditya is on the right track. He's talking about soil moisture. Can we do something?
Sorry, sir. I actually didn't follow for 1 minute. Can you, what was the discussion?
Sir, once again, explain the situations.
Okay. So now let's just imagine this. First of all, does everybody understand this previous curve? This previous curve, is this understood? PET is the maximum that can happen from a given for a given type of crop, right? For a given type of crop, PET is the maximum evapotranspiration that can happen, which completely satisfies the needs of the crop under consideration, right? If I Okay, so if I measure, let us say I measure from 8 o'clock in the morning to 6 o'clock in the evening. Okay, that's the typical duration of the sunlight hours. Okay, 8 to 6. At 8 o'clock, the moisture content, let us say it is, or available moisture is 100%. Okay, so from 8 to 9, it's let us assume that it is at 100 or 90, 100 to 95%, very, very close to maximum moisture available. Okay, so the plant continuously keeps using it, and at the end of 1 hour, it has brought down the available moisture from, let us say, 100% to maybe 80% or 60%, let us say. Okay, this curve we don't know beforehand. We don't know this curve beforehand. I am trying to estimate what the ET from this or the PET from this soil sample is for this particular kind of crop. Okay, so then I install a watertight tank inside this soil. I fill that tank with the same soil as a surrounding soil. Okay, and I grow the same plants that are being grown outside inside this watertight box. Okay, so now how do I ensure that the plant is growing at its optimal rate? Yes, anybody? When will the plant grow at its optimum rate?
So when 8 equals PT
Go back one more step.
or greater.
Go back one more
Soil
step.
moisture is greater than field capacity.
When the soil moisture is greater than or equal to field capacity.
Field
Okay.
capacity.
Right. So then,
Yes.
now can you answer it?
So if we can check inside the tank that if it is it does have a proper moisture content, then it'll grow to a certain length, and we can then compare it with the plants outside the tank, and then we can check whether they're growing.
No, we are not.
Optimum.
See, we are not concerned about what is happening outside. First, we will do it for we will control what is happening inside the box. Okay, whatever is happening inside the box, if you do the same thing outside the box, then outside the box will also grow at the correct rate. So our objective is to ensure that inside the box we are able to grow it at its maximum rate. And based on that information, it will tell us how what the conditions outside the box are. Now let us imagine 8 o'clock you have started taking these measurements. At 9 o'clock, a little bit of rainfall happens for 10-15 minutes. Okay, so the rainfall happens over this entire field, including this watertight tank that I have placed. Does that make any difference to this to the task that I'm trying to accomplish? Okay, so it looks like there is something that is missing, or that some understanding is lacking. What is it? What can I do to improve this situation? Everybody is not on the same page. I can see that. Guys, you have to ask. If you are not following something, just ask.
So if it's a watertight tank, how does the rainfall affect it?
Okay, so it's a watertight tank on all 4 sides and the bottom, not at the top, because the plant has to be exposed to the atmosphere for it to grow, right? It needs sunlight. It needs. When I say watertight, I mean okay, I should have mentioned that clearly. Watertight on all sides and the bottom. Okay.
Okay.
So it is not interacting with anything other than the atmosphere. If in the atmosphere, if through the atmosphere it receives some rainfall, okay, that's fine. We can't control that, because that's also happening outside the box. You guys are, you simply have to, Aditya, you're on the right track. You're looking at soil moisture. Isn't there something we can do to the soil, moisture? Okay, so now let us say at time t equal to 0, soil moisture is at some number x, which is greater than field capacity. After 1 hour, it has come down from x to maybe 80% of x. What does that mean? What does that decline mean? What does it mean that it has declined from x to 80% of x? Where did that 20% go?
It
Plants.
evaporates.
That 20% is ET, right? That 20% that has left the soil has basically become ET, right? But that 20% happened when the soil moisture was greater than field capacity. So it was happening at PET, the rate of potential evapotranspiration. But now when the moisture content is reduced from x to 80% of x, will PET happen? Or will AET, which is some other, with some number less than PET, happen?
AET will happen.
AET will have, it's always AET that's happening, but we want to keep it as close to PET as possible, or we keep it at PET. So what you need to do is you add back that 20% X into the soil. The 20 which was lost from 8 o'clock to 9 o'clock, let's say 20% that was lost from 8 to 9 o'clock, you add that back into the soil. So now again, the soil is identical to what it was at 8 o'clock. Correct? We have brought the soil back to the same moisture content that it had at 8 o'clock. Okay. So now let us say between 9 and 10, from at 9 o'clock, it was again back at X. From 8 to 9, it went slowly, it went from X to maybe 0.8X. And then at 9 o'clock, you observed that the moisture content had changed by this much. So you again added up some water and brought it instantaneously. You brought it back to X, let us say. Just assume that we can do this instantaneously. You brought it back to X. Now 9 o'clock, the sun has become a little bit hotter. So instead of going from X to 0.8X like it did from 8 to 9 o'clock, from 9 to 10, it goes from X back to 0.75X maybe. It loses a little bit more water. Because the sun has become more hot, so obviously ET will increase, right? Because it depends on temperature. You're following what I'm saying? Basically what you're doing is you keep adding water to the soil to ensure that the soil moisture content does not change with time. That's what we are doing. I'm talking about it as if we are doing it at a 1 hour interval. Assume that you are doing it automatically. As soon as the soil moisture drops, you add water until it comes back to the original soil moisture. At time t equal to 0, there was some soil moisture, which was maximum soil moisture. As time goes on, as the plant keeps extracting water out in the form of ET, you keep adding water back such that the moisture content never changes. Let us say you keep doing this from 8 in the morning to 6 in the evening. In those 10 hours, how many hours is that? 4 plus 6, yeah, 10 hours. In those 10 hours, whatever water you have added, that is
ET.
That is your ET. Right? It's so simple, right? Agreed? Oh my God, the silence is scary. You agree with this? It's such a simple way of estimating ET, right? ET is the amount of water required to maintain constant soil moisture inside that watertight tank, right?
Sir,
Yes, sir.
but there may be some initial water content in the plant itself, right? So that will also be considered in that should also be considered in transpiration. I mean,
Okay. At the end of the 6 hours, will the plant be dry or will it also have some water in it?
it will have some water in it.
Okay, so we don't get down to that level. Okay, of course, you can do this at, remember, this can be done at different stages of the plant's growth. When the plant is, maybe a few centimeters tall, it might require a certain amount of water. But if it becomes 1 meter tall, then it may require more amount of water, right? So for the different growth stages of the plant, you may have different values of ET for the same plant. Correct? But between morning and evening, you're assuming that the plant has not grown so much that it has taken on all that extra water. Of course, there will be some water that the plant has taken, that goes into the plant itself. Right? But there was water in the plant at 8 o'clock also in the morning, and there will be some water inside the plant at 6 o'clock in the evening also. Right? But generally speaking, this, whatever procedure we have done is the amount of water that you've added. If you can keep track of that, whatever water you've added, that much is the water that has gone out in the form of ET, because that is the only process that can change the soil moisture. And that is why I said, suppose you get some rainfall in the middle of the day, at between 11 o'clock and 12 o'clock, there is some 1 centimeter of rain. At that time, you won't add any soil moisture, you won't add any extra water, because nature is already adding it by through the process of precipitation. Then you will not add any moisture, any additional water. You will just record that between 11 and 12, this much rainfall was received. You will add that to the water that you added manually. Is that okay?
Yes.
Sir, is PET a number? As in, is there a particular value?
Of course, there is a particular value for a particular soil. There is a particular value for a
If we are
particular soil
also
and for a particular vegetable. Sorry, just a minute. For a particular kind of crop or a plant, and for a particular kind of soil, there is a number. And for a given location, the same crop in the same soil, you grow it in Delhi and you grow it in Tirupati, it will have a different value of PET.
we are also talking about a moisture content greater than field capacity, then how is there a limit for PET? As in, more the water, more the evaporation, right?
No. The plant cannot grow infinitely, na. The plant cannot
We
grow to an
consider
infinite.
that you said evapotranspiration includes everything, right? That which happens from the soil also.
Oh, that which happens from the soil. Yeah, of course. See, for example, different crops require different kinds of water. So, for example, paddy crop, it is traditionally assumed that paddy requires flooding of water. Okay, so if you look at any paddy field, it will be filled with water. Whereas if you go to any other crop, they will just irrigate it and the water will go into the soil. It's called flooding type of irrigation. For paddy, that happens, but that is the requirement for the crop, right? That is the requirement for the crop. It always requires the soil to be at some kind of a saturated state. So it is not just field capacity; it is much greater than field capacity.
Okay.
It's all
So
the
how do
water
we?
that is required, all the water that is required for the plant to grow to its optimum capacity. That is the ET or the PET. Sorry. And how you distinguish that is, let us say, I keep two identical boxes of soil and two same crop in both both boxes, and in one I provide water up to certain extent, and in the other I provide water let us say the initial moisture content that is in the soil. In one, let us say it is at X, and the other one it is at some other number. Okay, at the end of it, you get some what is called biomass, which means the crop, after it is fully grown, mature, after it has reached maturity, you just extract all the plants and you weigh the plant. One plant would have grown to, let us say, 1 centimeter, 1 meter height. The other plant may have grown to 95 centimeters height. Because it didn't have enough moisture, it was not able to achieve its maximum growth. Right? If assuming 1 meter is the maximum growth for a particular plant, then it has to achieve that. Only then it has potential evapotranspiration has happened for that crop. If it doesn't reach 1 meter, sorry, then that means that it has not, it has not received enough moisture during its growing stages.
Okay. feels so abstract.
Yeah, it it is abstract. So the thing is this, right? So different years, if you look at the agriculture data, right? Same soil will be grown. The same farmer will be growing the same paddy crop or sugarcane crop in the same location. One year he will get 10 tons of rice. Next year he may only get 8 tons of rice. Why is that? One year they'll say there's a bumper crop. This year the farmer was able to get 12 tons of rice. On average, he only gets 10 tons usually. But this year the farmer has been able to produce 12 tons. Why did that happen? Because the climatic conditions are favorable, right? The nature would have given rainfall at the right time, so that such that the plant was able to grow to its full capacity, right? So that is a factor that depends completely on nature, right? So different years you have different production from the same crop, from the same soil, from everything is the same. You apply the same fertilizer, everything is the same. But different years you have different kinds of productivity. Okay. All right. So that's
So
yeah.
we take this information and give them so that uh, I mean they'll know if they had to use more water or not.
See, th- this information is useful in multiple ways. Okay. One, depending on which crop you're growing, you know how much water to irrigate, because you may know, for example, you may know in advance that in the next 10 days this is the amount of rainfall you're going to likely to receive, or this is the amount of rainfall this is the amount of deficit that will be there in the rainfall. Usually in the next 10 days, between let us say July 15th and July 30th, usually you receive about 3 to 5 centimeters of rainfall. But this year you're only going to receive 1.5 centimeters of rainfall. So the farmer has to plan for that, right? And then appropriately they'll irrigate the water, or they'll okay, let's not get into too many details, because even I don't know what exactly the farmer does. Okay, but the farmer is able to make some decisions based on this kind of information, that for this crop this is the amount of water that is required for this region. So these, okay, so different crops that are in different regions, these are called agroclimatic zones. Agroclimatic zones. So what the government does is it has divided the entire country into different agroclimatic zones, right? And so for each agroclimatic zone, it will be the Department of Agriculture will advise the farmers that if you grow this kind of a crop, and if you apply this much water at different stages, the crop will grow to its to its desirable output, right? Or its optimal growth, right? So that kind of thing is decided based on empirical evidence, right? So you look at traditionally what has been grown in this region. You look at traditionally or conventionally how much rainfall do you receive in this region, the kind of pests that are in a particular region, right? Some kind of insects are in a particular region, in another region you may have different. All of those things go into coming up with these advisories for pest control, for soil moisture, for fertilizer application. All of these factors go into this. Okay, we are only looking at the water aspect of it, right? We are not looking at all the different aspects of cultivation. We are only looking at it from the perspective of soil moisture, precipitation, and so on. Okay, and in terms of ET, of course. All right. Okay, so let's keep going. Similarly, this you can also have field plots where in this case we had a watertight. In the case of lysimeter, we had a watertight tank. But if you don't have a watertight tank, let me erase this. Agroclimatic zones. Okay, if you don't have these a watertight tank, right? And if it is actually not, if it is connected to the groundwater aquifer and so on, then the ET is simply precipitation plus irrigation. How much water you apply manually, either through a bore well or through a canal or whatever, minus whatever runoff happens from the plot, minus the increase in soil storage, which means increase in soil moisture, right? Minus groundwater loss. Now, obviously, groundwater loss is very difficult to estimate. You already know that, right? So this kind of estimate can also be developed for the ET by looking at the different components of the water budget and just estimating what the different values of these numbers are. Precipitation, you can estimate very easily. How much water you apply, the farmer knows, right? I put 3 centimeters of water or so on, right? And then runoff, you can estimate based on the rainfall and the slope and the type of soil and so on. And the increase in soil moisture, you can look at the soil moisture at different points in time, right? That also goes into this equation. And then groundwater loss that may be happening due to recharge and so on, right? All of that can go into measuring ET also. Okay, we are almost out of time. I'll just quickly explain a couple of other methods. There are many empirical equations available. Okay, we'll not get into these equations. I'll just tell you the names of them. I'm not going to tell you the entire equation. Some of these equations are very, very complex. Okay, so the most popular one is called the Penman's equation. I mean, there are two very popular ones. One is Penman equation and the other is Penman-Montieth equation. Okay, so I will not explain these different terms. You just look it up online. Very, very complex equation which takes into account so many factors: number of hours of sunlight, what latitude you are located at, the kind of crop that you're growing, the kind of, all of these different factors are taken into account, and then you come up with some kind of a equation. I have not expanded this equation. This HN is one big equation with lots of terms in it. I did not expand it because I didn't want to. There's no point in memorizing this or anything. You just need to know the name of this equation. Penman equation. These are like almost 70, 80-year-old equation, 1940s, 1950s. That's when these equations were developed. And then you also have the Penman-Montieth equation, which is very popular, which measures what is called a reference crop ET. Okay, so you have a standard crop for which, if you know the ET, what is called ET naught. Okay, if you know that, then for any other crop, you can simply estimate the ET as K into ET naught. So ET naught is a reference ET. Then for a given crop, I can come up with a crop coefficient. So for this reference crop, if I know the ET naught, then for any other crop, I can estimate the ET by simply multiplying it by the crop coefficient. And there are different tables available for these crop coefficient numbers also. Okay, and the crop coefficient varies from 0.5 to 1.3 and so on. Okay, and then a couple of other empirical equations. Don't worry about the equation. I'm not going to tell you the equation. They're very complex. Too many terms, lots of different factors. Number of hours of sunlight, angle of incidence of the sun, and so on, right? Depending on the latitude, the angle of incidence of the sun's radiation also plays a role in this. Okay, what is called the Blaney-Criddle formula. This is also 1940s, 1930s, and so on. And the Thornthwaite formula, again, very, very popular. These are all some of these, empirical cum theoretical equations that are used to estimate ET. Okay, so with that, we'll stop for today, and then we'll meet again tomorrow at 12 o'clock. Please start working on your project, and if you have any questions, email me beforehand, or we come to class and we discuss any questions that you may have. All right?
Sir.
Yes.
Sir, the shape
Thank you.
files aren't being opened.
What is that?
Like I'm not able to open the shape files.
Did you download all the files that were in that zip file?
Yes, sir. But
you save-
is there any special WordPad kind of a thing so that we can open that?
No. Wait. Listen to me. When you download all those files, so for example, it will say apdistricts.shp. That is the shape file.
Yes, sir.
The other files that are there, apdistricts.prj.shx, there'll be some 5 or 6 files.
Yes,
All of them should be in the same folder, along with the shape file. These are all associated files. Wherever you are saving that .shp file, all the other files that are in that zip file should be saved in the same folder. Then when you open the shape file, it will open. Okay, try that. Some other people also had some similar kind of issue, but when they saved all the files in the same location, then everything was fine. It worked fine. Okay.
Sir, and one doubt, like you asked me some question, right? What was that question you asked me, sir?
No, I was just asking you inside that water tank, watertight tank, where you have the soil and the plant. The question was, how will you estimate what is the ET happening through this particular box of soil where the plant is growing? That was the question. So for which I provided the answer already. You keep adding water to maintain soil moisture at a certain value.
Which was, we'll compensate that. So the compensation will be the actual moisture which has been that has gone out through transfer.
If you maintain the soil moisture at a constant rate greater than or equal to field capacity, whatever water you have added to maintain it must be equal to PET, because PET will keep happening So if you have added 10 centimeters of water, I'm just giving an example. If you have added 10 centimeters of water, then 10 centimeters of ET must have taken place. And since you always maintained it above field capacity, it would have taken place at the rate of PET. That's all.
Yes.
Okay.
And
Okay.
finally,
One second. Next class is starting. So anybody else who wants to leave can leave. Yeah, go ahead.
so like, what is the like abiding factor here? Like, it's just dependent on the type of soil, everything, like whether it is ET or plant growth.
Yeah.
It is like, is it just dependent on the soil?
Yeah, it is dependent on the soil. It depends on the
Like,
soil also, but it depends more on this on the plant than on the soil. It depends on the soil also, but it depends more on the plant, right? A particular kind of
different
plant.
soils
If,
where-
what is that?
different soils
Okay, see,
where,
one second. So the next instructor may come and log in, and the call may just get cut off abruptly. Okay, so if it gets cut, then I can't answer the question. So it's better if you save it for next class.
okay, sir.
Okay, I'm not discouraging you at all from asking the question, but
No
you
problem.
just need to understand
Ask
that
them.
somebody else is also going to log in now, and when they log in, my account will get cut off abruptly.
Yes.
Okay.
Students are facing technical problems, sir. This bandwidth or whatever, I don't know, net issues.
No, I understand. That's why the YouTube file is also getting uploaded, right? So,
Okay, sir. Yeah.
okay. I mean, I understand that, but what do we do? There's nothing we can do, na? Unfortunately.
Today I'm the victim. I am victim for that.
That's okay. That's okay. Next class is starting. I don't want to disrupt you guys. Okay. I'm ending the call. Thank you.
Good morning, sir.
Yeah. Good morning.